Welcome to our guests, Svitlana Romanko and Karen Van Loon, and to all of you who are joining us. Thank you for celebrating with us the launch of the virtual Catholic Eco-Investment Accelerator Toolkit. This webinar, as I said, will be recorded, and it's also enhanced with French and English interpretation, thanks to our friend, Alice, and I'll show you how to do that. At the bottom of the screen, actually it doesn't show online, you will see a globe icon. If you click on that, you can choose what language you would like to listen to our webinar in. Alice will interpret between French and English for us. Towards the last quarter of our hour today, we can respond to any questions you might have from the group. Please type your questions in the chat box. Elise will help us sort through the questions and bring your questions to our attention at the end. I also invite you to share in the chat your name, a brief recognition of the land that you're on, and what group you might be representing today. So each time the Laudato Si Movement in Canada begins a webinar or meeting, we always start with a land acknowledgement. So that's where I will begin. Mouvement Laudato Si Movement Canada, with faith in the common good, acknowledges that our projects from coast to coast to coast are on traditional territories of diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. These nations live in a deep reciprocal relationship with not only the land and the waterways, but also with the physical and spiritual forces that connect them to their place of creation in an intimate and meaningful way. We are grateful to have the opportunity to live, work, and thrive together. We seek to live in respect, peace, and right relations, and are mindful of broken covenants. By making a land acknowledgement, we are taking part in an act of reconciliation, honoring the land and Indigenous heritage, which dates back over 10,000 years. We also begin our meetings with a prayer. And this prayer today is a commingled prayer in part from Pope Francis that he offered to us at the end of the encyclical Laudato Si, and in part from the thoughts of Svitlana as concerns for the people of the Ukraine are in the forefront of her mind and of our minds today. So if you'd like to join me in this prayer, in the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. God of love, show us our place in this world as channels of your love for all the creatures of this earth, for what not one of them is forgotten in your sight. This earth, this sky, and many of us are witnesses to injustice. We understand when people struggle over resources, that violence is never justified. We see violent aggression is often underway when fossil fuel extraction companies work to protect profits over the rights of Indigenous peoples and local communities, bringing loss and damage to the land, people, and societies. Creator God, give us courage to stay brave and determined to end the many forms of injustice we witness. Hear our combined pleas for peace and justice as we pray for brothers and sisters put under threat of war, and help us keep peace and hope alive. All-powerful God, seize us with your power and light. Help us to protect all life, to prepare for a better future for the coming of your kingdom of justice, peace, love, and beauty. Amen. And in the Father, and Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. And now I'd like to briefly introduce each of the speakers. If you've attended any of the Laudato Si Movement webinars in the past, you know who I am. I'm not going to go too deeply into my biography. You can read it on our website. I will introduce, though, Karen Van Loon. She joined Faith in the Common Good in 2018 to lead the Cultivating Care for Our Common Home program. And she is also a member of the Laudato Si Movement Canada Advisory Circle. Previously, Karen was the coordinator of Scarborough Mission's Justice, Peace, and Integrity of Creation Office, which from 2007 to 2017 emphasized faith-based education and advocacy around climate change, as well as promoting ecologically sustainable practices. Svitlana Romanko is the Zero Fossil Fuels campaign manager for the Laudato Si Movement internationally, and is joining us from the Ukraine. She lives in the western portion of Ukraine. She is an environmental lawyer for over 20 years, and Svitlana holds a PhD in environmental, natural resources, land, and agrarian law, and has a doctorate on climate change law, climate governance, and climate policy. In this capacity, she has collaborated with many international institutions. Svitlana is a climate activist, green strategist, and a campaign manager. She is passionate about climate justice, ending fossil fuels, promoting green finance, and a green inclusive economy. Most recently, she led, designed, and managed successful regional and national campaigns in Eastern Europe, the Caucasus, and Central Asia. So now, if you will bear with me, I'm going to talk for a bit longer. I'm going to speak first, and I'm going to give you a tour of our toolkit. After I'm finished, Karen will tell you a little bit about the experiences of Scarborough Missions as they underwent their decision process to divest in 2014. And then Svitlana will follow with her comments from the international movement. So these are the links. We will provide those to you again in an email afterwards, but these links will take you directly to the landing page of our toolkit. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment and take you to the toolkit. So just bear with me for a moment. Sorry about that. Okay, here we are. When you click on that link, it will take you to our landing page. On the landing page at the bottom, we do have a disclaimer that I encourage everyone to read. It notes that we are not specialists in this area, but we provide for inspiration and information guides and means of having discussions that we hope we will find helpful. Each time you see a green box around words in the toolkit, that is a navigation point. You click on that and it takes you into the body of the toolkit. As you hover over each of these areas with your mouse, you'll see that there are subheadings. And each of these subheadings, you can also click on and go directly to them. So as you begin to navigate through the toolkit, and find that there are things that you want to come back to, these are quick ways of moving around. I will take you to one of our first sections in C and tell you that we only briefly talk about climate change itself and the science. We expect that at this point, many people are already aware of that, but for those who are having this discussion in communities where there are people who still need to connect the dots, we've created a simple 4.5-minute video that links things that are happening in Canada, in our north and across our boreal forests, and how they impact climate around the world, and also how we are experiencing climate change here. We talk a little bit about positive feedback loops, which Greta Thunberg is very afraid of, as we should be too. So this tells a little bit about the science, but then we move on to other portions in the toolkit. And the next section is actually connecting our Catholic values through Catholic social teaching to addressing climate change and the urgency that Pope Francis wants us to understand. I'm going to share this video live with you now because it was beautifully done. One of our writing team, Kathy Lacroix, did a fantastic job. It's a beautiful video, so I'll share it with you now. So you will recognize many of the Catholic social teachings in the first part. Like the slides are paired, so there'll be a comment on a Catholic social teaching, and then what climate change is doing in our ability to live out those teachings. That's why it's important for us to address climate change. It talks about preferential option for the poor, about the idea of subsidiarity. Those who understand most about a problem should be the ones to contribute to the solutions. And that's not always been the case in our society. So this and several other videos are prepared and available on YouTube for you to share in any instance where you would like to share it. So please, please do use these videos. Okay, so I'm going to pause that there. It gives you an idea of what we've prepared for you as tools that you can use. There's another powerful video towards the end of the C section that I'm going to share with you right now. It is Pope Francis speaking in a countdown TED Talk. At the 8-minute mark of that video, he talks about finance and our ability to use finance to transition to a better future. What I wanted to show you is that these videos available from TED Talk, you can see that there is English transcription at the bottom. You can turn that on or off with this CC here, but you can also change the language. So if you haven't used this function before, it's really helpful if you're speaking to a community of different language, that you can see Pope Francis's words in the transcription below. So we just wanted to share that with you so that you knew how to use it. It's a very powerful presentation, and it's coming from the very top of our church. We have no end of support for the work that we do. So I will close that again. Okay. Now we're almost finished with the C section. At the bottom of each section, there's a button to move ahead to the next one. So I will click on Judge, and that moves us ahead to the next portion of the toolkit. So Judge is sort of the meat of the toolkit. In this section, we provide what we hope to be some of the most valuable tools to help individuals, groups, communities connect their thinking about their own values, how they use their finances, and how they would like to respond to the call for an ecological economy. So I'm going to move down to the process of discernment. We've borrowed heavily from this document, and this is an instance where you can, of course, click and go to see it. This document is on the Laudato Si Movement Divest Invest website, and we've borrowed the discernment questions from here. This document was prepared with and for the UK and Ireland. What we have done is taken the relevant pieces that we can use and added Canadian context. These are the questions. There's 5 sets of questions that will help people work through the process of divestment and reinvestment and ecological investing. Each of these, there's a green button. We've created a PDF that you can print these questions off and hand them out in a meeting situation. So We've tried to make this as user-friendly and as helpful as possible. After the discernment questions, we bring in the Canadian context and we talk about the energy sector and fossil fuel companies in Canada and some of the questions that you might face when you are having these discussions within your own community or with friends and family and co-workers that might be questioning you as to why you think that this is necessary. So we bring some science to bear, some reports, both Canadian and international, that help provide an alternative conversation to what we often hear from politicians and the media in Canada. So it's, you know, we're supporting our claims, but we're also giving you materials for you to dig into the research yourself if you wish to. We've made every effort to provide links to resources for Francophone communities. However, you should understand that our writing team was English, so we've done the best we can with that. For many sites, there is a French and an English component, and you can choose that. But I wanted to show you that there are some really wonderful Francophone assets that you can look into as well. Regroupement pour responsabilité sociale des entreprises. Alice will help me with that. Have wonderful resources to support faith communities in their efforts to find impact investing that is worthwhile. They were also wonderful in helping us edit our French portion of the toolkit. So another really exciting opportunity that we put forward in the toolkit is the ability to use our investments to answer a call to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and that is to include Indigenous people in our business practices. There's wonderful resources written by Indigenous peoples as guides for people who want to invest in a partnership way with Indigenous enterprises. And we also want to highlight Raven Indigenous Capital Partners because they are breaking ground in North America and perhaps even internationally as fund proposals and opportunities for people to invest, again, in a partnership way directly with Indigenous entrepreneurs. They are growing exponentially, and the possibilities are quite exciting through this company. Okay, so that is close to the end of the judge section. And as we move through there, again at the bottom, you'll see we can move over to ACT. Okay, so what you would expect to find in ACT is there links to places where you can make your pledges and commitments to divest or to work with impact investment networks so that your investments combined with others can have a greater impact. I'm just going to scroll down through here and move to alternate actions because there's some other ideas that we present that you know, you don't necessarily have to reinvest in the market, although certainly investing in the market and supporting sustainable businesses is very important in transitioning to a new economy, but so is considering your investments as a way of supporting your local communities. In this ACT section, we also provide for you links to professional organizations that can help you beyond what we provide in the toolkit. Of course, aside from money and managing money, we could also include as actions our voice and our presence, our logos, our colors, our uniforms, with young people on the streets when they are calling for their very clear actions to support their future and address climate change issues. We also talked briefly about banks and the the insurance industry. Finally, in the last portion, before the resources in the ACT section, there is a reminder that the Laudato Si Action platform prepared by the Vatican with the support of the Laudato Si Movement, is a wonderful, structured guideline to help Catholics move towards sustainable practices in everything that we do. The third goal of that action platform is moving towards an ecological economy. And this toolkit, if you are engaged with the Laudato Si action platform, is the perfect tool to help anyone involved with the platform think about an ecological economy. So it's timely and that we've made this available to you. So in the resources section, where you've seen PDFs and things like that throughout the toolkit, we list them again at the beginning of resources. Likewise, our videos are easy to access here. And then a wealth of other information that we hope you will find useful. Professional organizations, impact investing collaborations, methods to learn more about the encyclical itself, if that's something that your community would like to do. I would like to take this opportunity to do a shout out to everything that Faith in the Common Good does. Looking at your own building, your own practices within that building to reduce your carbon footprint is also an important way of addressing our climate crisis. And Faith in the Common Good has all kinds of really helpful tip sheets, research, and even connections to possible grant opportunities that you can look at. And I invite you to take a look there. Okay, so I will wrap up and I finish my tour of the toolkit. I encourage people to not only look at it and absorb it for themselves, but to take it and present it to your pastor, to someone at your university, or financial advisors for the diocese and healthcare. This is something that we really hope is shared and used. So after you had a look at it, think about where you would like to take it and who you would like to begin thinking about these things. So I will stop sharing now. And I'll stop talking and I will turn things over to Karen.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. As Agnes mentioned, as a former coordinator of Scarborough Missions Justice, Peace, and Integrity of Creation Office, or the JPIC office, I was involved in the various stages leading up to Scarborough Missions divestment back in 2014. In the years leading up to Scarborough's decision to divest, there were some actions that sort of laid the groundwork for this. Various steps were taken to reduce fossil fuel use, such as an energy audit, as well as various building retrofits, including the insulation, windows, boiler, and solar-assisted water heater. The JPIC office also prioritized ecological justice and climate change. And there was broad consultation around developing an ecological mission statement. In early 2014, Scarborough Missions also held a conversation with some of the members, which included considering what scientists were saying at that time about how much fossil fuel the world could burn and still have a decent chance for avoiding dangerous climate change. And their conclusions indicated that the majority of fossil fuels had to stay under the ground. At the time, small island nations and least developed countries were also calling for global warming to be limited to 1.5 degrees Celsius, which meant that the world could use even less fossil fuels. And this was significant for Scarborough Missions because a number of them had served or were still serving in some of these countries. And in 2014, fossil fuel divestment was new in Canada and would really have liked to have had a toolkit like this at that time. We weren't hearing much about it from faith communities until a March 1st collaborative interfaith event organized by Greening Sacred Spaces, which is part of Faith in the Common Good, in collaboration with the Toronto United Church Council, as well as the Green Awakening Network. And that gave an opportunity for faith communities to come together to learn about divest and reinvest versus shareholder engagement around fossil fuels. And it was a very valuable event that at the time I was very grateful for that conversation and the fact that it brought people of faith together, which was new. And we no longer felt alone, that we weren't the only ones who were looking at this at the time. And at that forum, we heard Trinity St. Paul United Church announce their divestment from fossil fuels. And I believe they were the first in Canada, although someone can correct me on that if they want. And then in the summer, we also heard about the World Council of Churches divesting as well from fossil fuels. So in September 2014, the General Council, which is the leadership of Scarborough Missions, passed a motion to divest from fossil fuel companies over the next 5 years. And that included, it would include stocks, bonds, and other securities. And the conversations that were happening with investment managers became easier because they moved from saying they hadn't heard about fossil fuel divestment to appreciating that a lot of people had concerns about the fossil fuel sector. And shortly after making this commitment to divest, the market then fell on fossil fuel stocks. So it took actually until the end of 2016 for the stock market to recover enough for to have a prudent divestment of fossil fuel company stocks. And in April of 2017, after completing that divestment, Scarborough Missions sent a letter to the relevant officers and directors of these fossil fuel companies, informing them of their decision to divest. And this letter was also published on Scarborough Missions' website as a way of letting everyone know that the divestment had been completed, and also some of the reasoning of why Scarborough had done this. And Scarborough has always considered divestment as one more way of living out its ecological mission statement. And overall, they've said that they were very pleased with their decision to divest from fossil fuel companies. And if you want to learn more, the toolkit does include Scarborough's summary of divestment from fossil fuels under resources, as well as a link to that letter on the website. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. As you mentioned, Scarborough Missions, the Catherine Donnelly Foundation, Jesuits of Canada, there were a number of early adopters and players around the divestment idea in 2013, 14, 15. And with this toolkit, we're hoping to revitalize that conversation. So now I will welcome to the spotlight Svitlana from the Laudato Si Movement.
Yes, thank you so much, Agnes and the movement Laudato Si Movement Canada for having me today. And I am representing Laudato Si Movement International Secretariat, as you've mentioned already. And I'm here to endorse, first of all, a new toolkit that will help to divest from fossil fuels in Canada. And I truly believe that we will have more divestment commitments from Canada in 2022 and maybe in upcoming years, because the climate crisis is underway and we all need to act in different dimensions, financially, by eco-conversion, by implementing Laudato Si encyclical into life, by us all, our communities, of course, indigenous communities, and all of us. And I would like to quote our executive director, Tomas Insua, who said about the Eco Investment Accelerator Toolkit, Catholic Toolkit. I have to emphasize on that. Very important for Catholic community all over the world, that this Catholic Eco Investment Accelerator Toolkit will enhance a call for a fossil fuel divestment in Canada. And it's a powerful act of faith that will advance the end of the supply side of fossil fuels in the petrol state. So people of faith are divesting a scale from the dirty coal, oil and gas, and reinvesting in climate solutions to finally conclude that there is no future for greenwashing of fossil fuel companies and governments that subsidize climate injustice everywhere. As Pope Francis said, enough of the thirst for profit that drives the fossil fuel industry's destruction of our common home. So I would like also to introduce you, just introduce our small advocacy team to Laudato Si Movement Canada and to attendees of this webinar and to all our supporters. So this is like, there are only 2 people from advocacy team in this slide, our director of advocacy and myself, and you also can see Lorna Gold, the chair of our Laudato Si Movement, and Jonathan, who is our writer, and Jane, this is who is from the UK. This is a picture from the COP26 where we held our Catholic space as a Catholic community trying to take care for our common home. And we had a divestment webinar in there, and we will have another divestment webinar in upcoming COP27 and even much sooner than that. And I will tell you a bit more about our events today when I will be speaking about divestment announcement and the importance to make them publicly visible and to speak about that, to be sound about our divestment commitments so far we're making them. So here are my emails, my direct contacts. You will have this presentation afterwards. So please don't hesitate to contact Laudato Si Movement for any support you would like to have, getting involvement into our global campaigns or just requesting for some support on a regional level or national level, and participating in our events. So we are looking forward to that. Please do contact us anytime. And I would like just to mention that this year we have reframed our strategic framework for 3 next years, and our main dimensions will be eco-conversion, as you probably all familiar with, and spirituality, of course, because what makes us Catholic community, it's who we are, and prophetic advocacy, which is quite a new dimension of Laudato Si Movement internationally. So our main campaigns for now are, of course, Catholic Invest campaign or Reinvest campaign, which has started in 2015 and successfully ongoing until now. So in the past year, we had 108 divestment commitments made in different parts of the world and covering over 5.5 billion of equivalent US dollars of assets divested from the fossil fuel industry. Of course, next divestment announcements will be a necessary part of our divestment reinvestment campaign, and we invite everyone to speak to the institutions, to their companies, to their parishes, to their bishop conferences, to any institution you can reach, because the need for divestment is critical for this year and for next, because we only have few years to stop climate crisis according to IPCC reports and according to IEA report as well. We cannot make any new investments into the fossil fuels, and we need to reinvest in renewable energy because there is enough of renewable energy in the world already, as another research proves. Fossil fuel exit strategy I can share with you later. So we just need to move money flows from one dirty industry to more clean and community-owned energy. We will invite you to join in a case you would like to campaign for divestment commitments in your communities, in your cities, for the days of divestment announcements. When we normally go public, we send press releases, we have webinars where we invite national and local speakers and give them space to have a say about how they divestment, to showcase their cases and moral and ethical responsibility and inspire others, of course. So the next dates for that divestment announcement would be July 5th, the most likely, and November the 1st or 2nd, because we normally connect it to some important political events, as for example, COP, next Conference of Parties, or some other events as a Lambeth Conference, very important conference of Anglican Church with hole-in-ones per 10 years. So, and this will be this year already later in August. So we will be able to join, and please do fill out the registration form that you feel you can find on the right, and join the divestment movement, which is increasing. And just to let you know that 72 religious institutions made a commitment to divest from fossil fuels only on October 26. And there were 37 of institutions who made this commitment a bit earlier in May 2021. And this brings a total number of divestment commitments, Catholic divestment commitments, I have to say, to 307 as of October 2021. And we have 6 more commitments already made since October. This is very important. This is our divestment is our moral imperative, as has been said, and as a quote of Pope Francis also was mentioned today. But I would like to say a few words from Father Jostrom Kurithidem, who is our great supporter, and he is a voice of climate justice within the Vatican Dicastery of Integral Human Development. And he said that our own brothers and sisters around the world are already suffering due to the climate crisis, and we cannot push them to greater sufferings. This year is a year of conversations about global climate justice and injustice. So developed states should take care of those who are less developed and not to make them suffer greater than they have been. So just informing about the growth in divestment commitments, and I included the link to the Divest report of 2021, which is report for the past decade over the divestment progress. And as you can see, the divestment total assets under management committed to fossil fuel divestment are rising exponentially. So we hope for having more of institutions, and especially if you please could take on the right side of the slide, there is the newest data from the Global Divestment Commitments database, which is managed by our partners. And we see that faith-based organizations are holding the top level position on here, being 521 of overall number, which you can see in the center. But what I have to say, we've seen that only 307 of them are Catholic institutions. So we have a lot more work to do, all of us. And on the right side of a slide, I've just included all live links for you for our blogs, where we put all necessary information for you to visit and to read about divestment campaign live and about some outcomes and achievements. And these are Catholic divestments from all over the world. Again, this map has been updated not a while ago, and we can see only 5 coming from Canada. We very much hope that Canada, as a country that has a special sense and feeling of climate justice, will divest more, and we encourage every one of you to campaign for divestment commitments with us. And my last slide would be about updating you all, because maybe you will find some space and time to join us for some important activities and events this year, planned for this year, or read some important resources which can, or watch them, because many of them are the webinars which you can watch and just hear about some latest campaigns developments from different persons, including the leaders of divestment movement and including the IA director who presented and who endorsed, who presented their latest report that said no investments should be made in fossil fuel industry. And he also endorsed our divestment campaign and its achievements. So this year we plan to develop a Catholic divestment toolkit online, very interactive and very simple for every community to understand. And we plan also to involve more Catholic universities and healthcare institutions who are receiving public funds for divestment and call them to divest. We plan to focus on diocese, archdiocese, and bishop conferences as well, and communicate with them much more than we did. 2 webinars to celebrate Global Days of Divestment on July 5th and November the 2nd. and COP27 divestment campaign events. And we even plan to have the first ever Catholic hub at COP27, where we invite everyone for co-creation and care for our common home. And a special place in our resources has been taken by Catholic Eco Investment Accelerator Toolkit, which we also encourage everyone to use and share among the communities, because that was a hard work that lasted for, I believe, 1 year. And this is really amazing work and milestone toolkit that I believe will be useful for many, many years ahead. Thank you, Agnes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Svitlana. Really exciting things on the horizon, and I hope that our working together will tip the needle, that we'll be very hopeful about a clean energy future and sustainable activities from the Catholic Church around the world. So now I'm going to ask Elise if she's found any questions that people would like to ask of us.
Yeah, we'd like to invite people to add any questions that they have to the chat, things that have popped up, anything that you're thinking about. One thing that I was thinking about during this conversation is, how can my community benefit from participating in a global campaign, for example?
So I'll leave that one for Lana to answer.
Yeah, I will be happy to take this question and answer. We encourage everyone to join our global campaigns, and not even join global campaigns, but also we provide some advocacy support on the up to the regional needs. And if you need something for your local campaign, not necessarily global, you can reach out to us and we can help you and have a training together, or co-develop some resources, or just provide you with some voice in global spaces. For example, during Laudato Si week or during a season of creation, we are welcoming some regional events, and we try to highlight local campaigns and provide them with some space and sound to be visible and to be heard by globally and by and regionally as well. There are a few ways, just I will name from 1 to 3 probably, how you can join global campaign so far, not even being receiving some support with your local campaigning. The first one is to very simple, to sign up for our emails and to contact us directly, and I mean by email that you have seen in the presentation, and we can include you to receive our invitation for the webinars and trainings for our current events. Second, you can join next week, start from joining next week for our Ipcc webinar, because Ipcc report, very important one on climate impacts and biodiversity crisis, will be released on February 28th. It will be, I would say, very important report, because the same one has been released 6 years ago, and he made a significant change in political spaces and advocacies, and turned a bit political opinions to cut the emissions at that time, because that was highly harmful for biodiversity. And you can also be in locally to join movement Laudato Si Movement Canada, and they will and being a volunteers and trying to help with campaigns, and we can collaborate with you via Laudato Si Movement Canada as well. Thank you.
Absolutely. So the creation of this toolkit is to help support what people do locally across the country. So there's some nuggets of really active people, and we hope to see and support more. So through our website, through networking and collaborating, and for people to reach out to me so that I can introduce you to others who are doing this work across the country. We're a big country. We're spread wide apart, but Zoom and Google Teams, and there are many ways to communicate now that we didn't have or weren't comfortable with maybe pre-COVID, but now the networking opportunities are amazing, and I can help with that. So there are many ways that we can support each other in this activity of divesting and reinvesting.
Great. We've got a question coming in from John. He's asking about what you might be presenting to the diocese when you contact them, and maybe good ways of persuading folks. Any thoughts?
I think when we began this process, one of the things that that I heard was a simple explanation of the process, and that's what we've hoped to present in this toolkit, especially the center portion where the discernment questions. Certainly there's a lot there, but they can be scaled down, and we can make the suggestion that these are the things to think about, and also to work through in order to align investments with an ecological economy. So first of all, looking at the charism and the values held by a diocese, or like dioceses are based on geographical place. So what are the concerns in that diocese? For communities of religious brothers and sisters and priests, they have their own charism that defines for them in a more specific way how their values interact with the world. So looking at those first, and the toolkit helps with that, and you know, it's something that we could work together to present to a bishop or a pastor. But then how those values translate into investing, and the first stage of that is looking at what you already have. Does the investments you already have match your values, or do your investments work opposite to what your values are? And in this climate, in this environment, these days in the world, holding fossil fuel energy stocks with companies that are continuing to expand, to explore into more sensitive ecological areas like Arctic waters and that kind of thing, is not working in a compatible way with our values. It's working opposite to our values. So do we want to continue supporting that type of industry with our money? Similarly, having a conversation about our money and changing the way we look at it is a leadership opportunity that we can then take to our advocacy work. We are willing to change the content of our investment packages to work towards a sustainable and clean energy future. Government, will you please follow our lead and do the same? We are asking government not to use our public money in support of industries that is damaging us, is damaging our future, and is damaging the planet. We would rather our public money be put into industries and business, and a just transition to the future that we want to see, not a damaging past. These are parts, and there's so many different things that we could bring to a conversation with bishops, but aligning with our values, and that our values right now, as we're told by Pope Francis, are clearly not to support industries that continue a business model of damaging our planet. Maybe Karen might have a thought or two about that question.
I was actually thinking about one of the other questions. So sorry, my apologies. I was looking at the other questions on there.
Which question are you thinking about, Karen?
Oh, the next one, about whether it's religious or other, in the diocese and archdiocese. And to my knowledge, it's only religious communities that have committed to divestment and not diocese or archdiocese yet. But I don't want to take away from the first question. If anybody else has anything to add on that first.
So the question is, they're wondering what 5 communities that have divested in Canada, are they religious congregations or are they dioceses, archdiocese, etc.?
Yeah, I can answer this because I've just looked through our list of public commitments that we have concluded for getting more information. So we have only 2 religious orders from these 5. So in general, this list includes Scarborough Missions Province, Jesuit Province in Upper Canada, Institut Notre Dame du Bon Conseil de Montreal, the Catherine Donnelly Foundation, and Ursulines of Chatham. So only 5 of them, and as we can see, no diocese so far, unfortunately, and no bishop conferences, and we would definitely like to start working with those respectful officers on environment and sustainability, which are probably working in those dioceses. We even planned for this year, we are planning a webinar for only environmental and sustainability officers from diocese and maybe from bishop conferences as well, just to invite them, to speak with them, to show them some materials and articles. And as Agnes said, to speak with them openly, really with open heart, and trying to explain of what difference can the divestment and taking money from the dirty industry can make. And of course, we are very much rely on Vatican guidance on divestment, which has become a really important resource, and has been published in June 2020, 2 pages of very important information on divestment. If you would like me to share, I will be able to share with you as well later by the end of the webinar. Thank you.
It should be noted too that while there's just 5 on the Laudato Si Movement map, another place that people have registered their commitment to divest is with 350.org, and they're a fossil-free divest invest movement. So there are a few more there. The other thing that I've heard though, and that I know, is that there are many more than those 5 or even 10 who have completed their divestment commitments in Canada, mostly religious communities, but perhaps they haven't registered their commitment with these international movements. And there's some reluctance around that because they often, the registration form asks, what assets of yours, how much money, what dollar figure are you moving out of fossil fuels and into something else, renewable energy or clean tech or whatever. And the reluctance to answer that line has caused many people not to make their commitments with the international movements. However, and I think Svitlana will back this up, that is only required so that your personal or your community's commitment will be added to the total of everybody that is divesting in this next round of announcements. It becomes a portion of the total. Your own dollar figure will remain private unless you give permission to have it made public. And that is under your control. Otherwise, that dollar figure remains an individual and private number that is only added to the grand total. And no one knows how many dollars come from each individual group that's committed towards that total. So I'll just let Svitlana back that up there.
Oh, yes, that's absolutely correct. And thank you so much, Agnes, for adding that, and especially adding that, yes, we are missing some faith and Catholic institution in the list I've just named because of reluctance of adding some financial assets, direct numbers to the registration form, because there is a line, that's true, but we never disclose any numbers received in our registration forms. This is very important. And we even initiated a change into our website form in line, just notifying those who are filling this form in that your funds and your assets you are putting here will never be disclosed to media or to governments, to no one. And as Agnes said, we only may add them to the grand total number of divestments, because that's how we make an impact on those who makes a decision, and how we actually demonstrate influence an impact that our Catholic divestment movement has on the fossil fuel industry. And I would also encourage you to join the global event of our partners, Divest Invest Coalition, which will be on March the 1st. I can share with you link later because I don't have it for a moment. They didn't share with us, but I will have it in a day or two. There will be a big global celebration of reaching a number of $40 trillion being divested in general from the beginning of the divestment campaign. So that's a milestone number, and they invite everyone to join and to listen to the speakers of how did they reach to such a gross number. Yeah.
I see that we have about 4 minutes left. We can maybe take one more question if you have one for Elise, and then I'll wrap up our webinar.
Sure. I was just thinking if there was any other thoughts on the second part of that question, which was how can this be integrated into the larger work of Laudato Si Action Platform, but also what else can we do to advance an ecological economy in Canada?
I think if I can begin to answer a portion of that. Others can please jump in. But aside from shifting financial assets, advocacy work and working with others in networks to pressure for the policy that we need to see in Canada. So it's, I think, clear to many that our individual choices, while they are important, are now quickly becoming not enough. We can, each of us, do the best we possibly can, but we need government to help us move forward in faster leaps. And to do that, we need to keep telling our government officials, our MPs and our MPPs, and even on a municipal level, what we would like to see. And it's interesting, in some of the activist work that I've done in the past, some of the best and most progressive work can be done on the municipal level. Cities have a vast amount of control over how public transit happens. You know, if it's electrified, we already cut down then significantly on greenhouse gas emissions. But we also encourage people to leave their cars and use public transit, or make bicycle lanes safer and more accessible for people. There's an endless list of possibilities, and our imagination is the only limit to what we can ask of our politicians. But we should use our imagination and our voices to envision the future we want to see, and then ask for policy that will bring us in that direction. Okay, well, I see we're a minute from the hour, so I'd like to take this opportunity now to thank everyone who has joined us on this meeting. We'll follow up with an email that will give you access to the recording of this webinar, as well as a resource page that will have the links that Svitlana offered to us, and that Karen mentioned, and that I mentioned. I would like to thank very much Elise and the team at Faith in the Common Good for their technical support of the webinar. Alice for our French interpretation. I know that she does a wonderful job, and I'm very grateful for that. And to Karen and Svitlana. God bless all of you, and God bless and watch over the people of the Ukraine. Thank you for joining us this afternoon.